What's going on, dudes? We got a video coming to you guys here. Basically, this is a request video, but I get asked this all the time. People ask me, hey JD, how you setting your planes up? What are you doing? Or this is for the people that's asking for my dump files and stuff, which I don't mind sharing my dump files and everything, but people gotta understand with dump files, especially when the plane isn't a plug and play plane, there could be a difference in components as far as I'm using Emax servos, you could be using a different brand, or I'm running 6S, you're running 4S, And if I take my dump file that I'm using and have set up for this particular plane and give it to you, there's a fairly good chance that you're going to end up with some kind of issues with your plane trying to set it up and everything because there's a difference in components. And not just that, I mean, you have a difference. It could be within the linkage, for example. I might have mine screwed out or screwed in more than yours. It's several different variables that can take place to where your plane would not fly as good as mine does. You know what I mean? So what I always recommend to people is to go from scratch. You know what I mean? If it's a plug and play setup, again, I wouldn't mind. It's not that critical because the servos and everything are the same. The linkage should be the same and stuff. But when it's, literally you bought a plane as a kit version and you're having to add your own components and stuff to it, that's where the problem comes in hand at. And I know a lot of other people they won't even share their dump files for that reason, but they never do explain why not. You know what I mean? So anyway, quick tips real quick just to show some of the guys again for the beginners or people that just have an inquiring mind. You know what I mean? On what I do when I set my planes up and what works for me. And I've been doing this for years, and I get some pretty good results. But anyway, the first thing you always want to do, even on the plug and play setup, I do the same thing. I will take my calipers out and I will measure the length of the linkage. In other words, the linkage is going from the servo to the control surface and make sure that those are matched up. Like, for example, I'm using the Baby R wing, for example, in this clip. And I will measure those to make sure that they are the same exact length. If they're not, I will, take them all and, stretch them out or shrink them in, wherever I need to do to make sure that they match up. And you want to do this, you know, you want to have even throws. You know what I mean? You just do. If not, what end up happening is when you're flying and you may bang to the left or bang to the right, you really wouldn't too much notice it off in a stabilized mode. But if you're flying in manual mode or something like that, you'll notice a big difference in it. You know what I mean? Versus a left turn or right turn, it could be kind of squirrely, or it could confuse the flight controller itself because of that. So always take a measurement on that. The next thing you want to do when I'm setting up my throws in a plane, I will, have everything all wired up and stuff. I go by what the manufacturer has said to use on it, or if I'm not, if there's some other people that flew the plane before I did, whatever or not, I'll go look at it and see what they said about setting up the throws and what worked best for them. Pans 360, a couple of other guys are really, really good at letting you know what the throws is for a model, especially with the Mars FPV. The Mars FPV didn't even come with the throws for the plane in it at all. It wasn't even in the manual. So, I literally had to go by his video, and it was another guy. I can't recall the guy's name or not, but it's another guy that had a video up and showed what throws they was using, and that's what I took my guideline off to set my planes up. But anyway, same thing. What you want to do, you want to take your calipers, and what I always do, I put the plane, I connect the plane to the computer, put a battery in the plane, and take my radio, switch the plane to manual mode. Is what I would do. That way, I have full control of the control surface. There's no stability in the play of it, and I will raise that control surface up to the max, left, right, whatever not. I always start out with the aileron because that's usually what's on top. So I'll move the stick all the way to the left, and I take my calipers and I will measure it from the resting place where the control surface sits at up to its highest point. And then what I'll do from there, and I'll show you guys here real quick. Let me connect to this plane. Go over here to the mixer tab. That's where the magic goes down at. Oh, it's been sitting here for a while. Mixer. And this is the baby AR wing setup and everything. Running INAV 6.0. Yes, I know 6.1.1 is out, but it's flying fine on 6.1.0, so I'm not going to change it. But what I do, I go down into the mixer tab here, and as you can see, the roll, pitch, roll, pitch, and on this one here, I will I will measure out the height. I can't recall off the top of my head what they said to set the throws up to, but one thing for sure with Sonic Model and Zero HD, you don't have to worry about that. It's always going to be in the manual to tell you what the amount of travel for the control surfaces is supposed to be, aka throws is supposed to be for the plane. And you just take, these numbers right here, this one for example, and you just keep playing around with that number, raising it, lowering it until you get the exact height that they're saying. Um, like for example, say it's 8 millimeters, whatever not. You'll measure out 8 millimeters on the caliper and just keep, tweaking this setting. Go down here and hit save and reboot. Go back in, and then you'll see the control surface will change. If you go from 60 to 58, it may drop a half a millimeter or so. You know what I'm saying? You just keep playing with that back and forth until you get the correct height that the throws is supposed to be set with. And you do the roll, you set it on both sides the same way, and you do the pitch. Which if with the roll, it's gonna be the same on both sides if you got the linkage measured out correctly. That is, let me rephrase that. If the linkage is the correct link is matching up on both control surfaces, whatever number you punch in will match up on each side. So I always do that. Same thing with the pitch, just follow those steps and go down through it. Um, Something else that I do on my planes is, um, let's see here. As far as like on the Mars FPV, for example, I took the time because I put the crossfire receiver out on the wing. I actually will weigh the wings to verify that each wing weighs the same. That way, I won't have any kind of horizontal unbalancement. You don't hear many people talk about it. Most people always worry about the CG of the plane, the CG, CG. CG is very important, but to get a plane to where it's going to fly real balanced naturally, to where you don't even have to use auto trim off in it. You will want to most definitely make sure that the horizontal of the plane is balanced too. And the easiest way to do it, as you can see in this demonstration, is to weigh the wings out. If you can take the wings off, weigh it, and then just add some dummy weight in there until you can get the same amount of weight per wing. And that will guarantee that 99% of the time for me, in the way my experience, when I do that, I have the crossfire on the wing or receiver, video transmitter on the wing, whatever not. When I do that, the plane would never need auto trim in it as far as the horizontal go. Never needs it. It'll fly out just fine, no whammies, no issues at all. The next thing that I do, and I will have to add some video clip in on this one. I always set up the uh, outputs. Here we go. You go into outputs here, and what you want to do is unplug the battery from your plane and go down here and click this little tab. And this is, you're going to calibrate your ESC to INAV is what you're calibrating for. You're not calibrating to the radio, you're calibrating to INAV. So for this part of the step, you can turn your radio off is what you can do. Turn your radio off, have the plane connected, just don't have the battery off in it. Hit this little switch right here, and that's going to allow you to enable the motors and stuff and go ahead and raise it up to the top. And then once it's up to the top, of course, if you guys don't know how to calibrate your ESC, all you got to do is plug your battery in, and then you'll hear those first couple little beeps. And it'll do a different beep than what it normally does, and that's letting you know it's in the calibration mode. So as soon as the first set of beats stop, just go ahead and drop this all the way down. Make sure to go all the way down to the very, very bottom to 0. And once it does that, then you're here to ESC kind of do like I wouldn't say a reboot, but it'll let you know and confirm that it has received in the calibration. And once that's done, you're pretty much good to go. You're good to go out to the field and stuff. There's really nothing else that need to be changed. Flight modes, that's personal preference. OSD, personal preference. Um, what else we got here? You got the this is one thing here is kind of key. It's under PID tuning. Click on PID tuning, and over here you have your, I don't know why this is running so slow. The plane has been plugged up for a while. I've been on the phone with my daughter. That might be why it's running so slow. But anyway, here you go. You got the mechanics tab. Go down to the very bottom, and you have the level trim degree. And what I do for this, most planes, not all of them, that swordfish is a different beast. I have to tell you that for sure. The swordfish doesn't fly with its nose up as much as some of the other planes do. Just for example, like the AR Wing or the Mars FPV, it doesn't carry its nose at that altitude, at that type of that many degrees of angle. I would have to say to be the correct terminology for it. But three, 5 to 3 is always a good starting point. I myself don't typically go to 5. I usually start my planes out around 3 as far as the level trim. As it says, fixed wing level trim, I usually do 3 degrees on it. And that's usually for most planes going to be spot on. Every now and again, you might have to go back in after do the maiden flight. You might need to go in and retweak that setting or not. But 3 is usually a safe spot I find to be okay for. And that works out perfectly on my baby AR, the Mars FPV. I don't know what I got set off in the drift and my other planes I got, but anyway, this is a pretty cool new feature I would have to say they put in INAV. I haven't ever noticed it in there before. I guess since like well, the first time I noticed it off in INAV, I believe 5, INAV version 5, and before then that didn't exist. We used to have to set up the way the plane knew what level flight was or how to hold its attitude, I guess you would say. We had to go into the board alignment and set all that stuff up. And that's something else I still do too, which I know some people kind of frown on it. I would still go in here and play with the board alignment, but I would do it through the CLI, because you can't. They took it off of the. It used to be in configuration. It's not there anymore for you to do it, but I would still, especially like, if I know that the flight controller is not sitting flat and level in the plane might be sitting a little bit of the flight controller might be mounted at an angle or something like that. I'll go in there in the CLI command and I will adjust that to where the plane it knows exactly what flat and level is the way I do it today. And then I'll go into that other menu that I just showed you, and I still will put that the 3 degrees in it to do the maiden flight with and go from there. Anyway, that's pretty much it to get you guys started as far as the setting and INAVs. Normally, the defaults are just fine. There's no need to change any of the default PID tuning and stuff. As far as advanced tuning wise go, I always, on the maiden flights anyway, I always set up auto lunge the exact same on every single plane for the maiden flights, and pretty much it stays the same. I really don't ever change it much, except for this Mars FPV. Of course, I had to change it on it because it runs off of runs on 6S, and it's got a powerhouse of a motor on it. So I already knew that I could not have this sitting at 2,000 for a max throttle. That was going to be just way too much. The plane was going to torque roll or do something bad. But anyway, as you can see here, for the Baby R Wing Pro, and basically all the other planes I got that run 4S, except for the Alpha Strike. The Alpha Strike for sure, that's another powerhouse plane. I do not have the actual launch throttle on the Alpha Strike set to 2000. It's set down low too, so like 1750. But anyway, but that's something that you guys got to know, especially if you are buying a kit version of a plane and you're supplying your own motor and your own prop. What is so key, and I preach this to my bud all the time, anybody that asks me, you gotta know what the prop is, not the prop, but the motor and the prop combo is doing. You gotta know how much thrust is generating. If you don't know how much thrust is generating, you're jumping off into this just blind as can be. You know what I mean? And my rule of thumb is if the manufacturer does not have that information available for the motor, I don't buy it. I just don't. I'll buy something else that will have that information available, or at least find one a motor that's matching close up to it that has that information. Then I might buy it. Then you know what I mean. As far as the KV matching, the can size, and all that stuff, if it matches up all the way across the board, then I might go ahead. You know, some motors look better than others. You know what I mean. But if the specs are the same, I will go ahead and honor whatever thrust information that is supplied to me, and I would go with it. But if it doesn't have any kind of thrust, the prop information, I'm gonna tell you that don't buy it. You just wasting your time. Because I mean, you just don't know what you're gonna get into, and that's what helps me to have these planes to where they can be extremely efficient as it is. Like this Mars LPV, it's just like my Talon 250G. It's like it's running on nuclear power. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a whole lot for it to keep flying for the longest, and it's all because I took the time to do the research on what prop will work best for the motor and how much thrust is actually going to generate. Anyway, as you guys can see, this is what I do for my auto lunch. You are more than welcome to copy and paste it, whatever you want to do. And this will work just fine for every single model I got, except for the ones that's got the hopped up motors on it. And I mentioned Mars FPV and the ZOHD Alpha Strike. You know, the only difference is that the launch throttle is a lot lower because you gotta be careful with that. You know, but as far as these other planes, the plug and play planes and stuff like that, which the plug and play planes mostly don't have any kind of thrust information on it, but the Baby R Wing 2000, that's max throttle, it does just fine. You know, the way it works is not a shake and toss. Is you raise the throttle up, the throttle is gonna start spinning, and it's gonna go up to 30% throttle the way I have it set up, and that's just enough to where you ain't gonna be trying to snatch yourself out of his hand. But then as soon as I motion to throw it, that motor fires on, it's gone, and it's set at a 22-degree climb angle, and then it's gonna level itself out. As you can see, I got 9144 centimeters. I think that's like right at 300 feet, I believe. But anyway, again, that's what works for me. My opinion, that's a personal preference, but I know some guys don't trust themselves setting this stuff up, so there you go. Cruise speed, again, personal preference on what you guys want to use for your setup. Everybody's not doing the long range flights and stuff like that, trying to be super efficient, trying to cruise or this and that. And if you don't know what you're doing when you're setting up a cruise throttle, for example, like mine on this baby AR, it's set at 1350. Really, at 1350 with this plane, it can be too low for some people. If you're not able to watch the throttle, and if you're flying in high winds, for example, 1350 is gonna be too low, and the plane will it'll end up stalling on you. But I set mine to where it's that low for those the days where the wind is pushing it from behind. I don't need to have it at 50% throttle and the wind's pushing it, so now it's running 50 miles per hour, and I can't go below that. You know what I mean? Not in a stabilized mode. That is, most of the time I fly anyway. It's in cruise mode or altitude hold now, something like that, to where INAV is controlling the throttle. But if you're flying like I do, whatever, not, just keep that in mind to where you can have it to where you can set it below what the cruise throttle would be, or the bare minimum of what it can do, like on a no wind day. But just know that If you lose video, for example, or something like that, and you're flying this plane and you're in the winds, say you're flying against the wind or something like that, and you have it set too low, it's gonna fall out the air on you. You know, depending on whatever the stall speed is for that particular plane. Again, some planes stall easier than others. Some planes won't even stall at all. They just kind of float down and just kind of keep going and build a speed back up and stuff. So anyway, that's why I stress again. That's another personal preference for those that do what you do on that one, but don't go off of my settings. Each plane is different. I promise you. It has its very own cruise throttle setting that I use. Um, the next step, maiden flight. On your maiden flight, what I always do, I launch it in auto throttle, switch it to horizon mode, and um, here lately, again, with the way that I make sure that the horizontal is correct, CG is correct, and everything, I don't even have to do auto trim. But if the plane is flying kind of funny or something in horizon mode, I will go ahead and switch auto trim on. I do not do continuous auto trim. I do not do that. I don't like the way it feels. That's just my preference. Some of you guys do. I don't. But for the guys that's like me that don't do the continuous auto trim, I turn it off and I flip it on when I need it and allow the plane to find what level is and stuff. And once it's flying good and level, the way I like it, I will go ahead and switch on auto level. And once you switch on auto level, of course, it don't take but just a few seconds for the for the flight controller to take that information and set it, and you'll notice the plane it'll start flying just stellar. It'll be locked in. And again, I always do this on a very very low wind day. No wind is possible, but just make sure it's just a very, very low wind day. You don't want to try to tune the plane on any kind of windy day. I would say anything above 5 miles per hour, I wouldn't do a maiden. I just don't. I just don't. I would rather wait till it's almost dead calm. Which sometimes, of course, with the Mars, for example, it was windy that day I made it. I didn't have much of a choice. I just got tired of waiting, and I would have ended it anyway. But it was cool. It worked out great. But yeah, auto trim, then do your auto level, and then once you see the planes flying really, really level, switch off auto level, and then leave auto trim on. Land the plane. Once you land the plane, you disarm, and then you turn auto trim off, and it will automatically save to the plane. Unplug the battery, plug the battery back up, launch the plane again, it's gonna be spot on. It should be spot on flying like no other. It should be perfectly fine. Um, if you notice any kind of pitch oscillation or oscillation on the roadside of the house or anything like that, if you dare, you can try the auto tune. Again, I myself, I would rather sit there and pull the laptop out and lower or raise the PIDs myself personally and just leave whatever the feed forward and all that stuff there is. I know some of you guys, y'all swear by auto tune. That's cool. If it works for y'all guys, go for it. But again, I'm old school. I've been playing around with INAV since 1.7, and I would just rather manually tune the play myself to my likings, and that's what I do. I play around with the PIDs, and normally what I do is if there's a pitch oscillation, I will lower the P gain, for example, by 3 points, and I may bump the D up on the pitch by maybe 1 or 2 points or so. And if it's not really really bad, that will pretty much solve the problem for me. I would say about 95% of the time. And the same thing for the roll side of the house. I do the same thing for it too, and that normally fixes the issue. And but then you got to know the difference between where you have your pitch to throttle ratio up too high or not, and default is set at 10. Sometimes that can be the problem, but a good way to always tell if it's a pitch to throttle ratio issue, you'll see the amps increase and decrease, decrease, and that will let you know that it's a pitch to throttle issue. If you're seeing a pitch oscillation and the amp staying the same, then it's a PID issue. That's just one trick of the trade that I've learned. Anyway, this video's already went longer than what I had intended. I just again want to give you guys some good starter steps to give you guys some good success at those maiden flights. And if you guys have any more questions, anything like that, hit me up and we'll get you fixed up. Peace and love. We are out.